All right, ladies and gentlemen. So it's been a while since I made a video, so I'm gonna try to take this one nice and slow. I've already tried to make this video once, but it wasn't really. I didn't have enough visuals, the visuals that I wanted, so I was just kind of spending a lot of time sitting back blathering away. But basically, the plan for Season of Discovery was for me to keep most of my PvP information to myself and in-house with other paladins, such as Talrain and Peaceblade, if he wanted to in on it, but he didn't really want to. And if there was any PvP tournament that popped up, I would try to get in it, and I would just basically smash people because I'd kept all the information to myself. That was the master plan. That's why I haven't been making guides or I haven't been making videos for Season of Discovery PvP, and this will likely continue a little bit. I'm trying to give you guys what information I can give you, but I mean, I'm just keeping most of the stuff in-house. So since they're not actually going to be doing a level 25 PvP tournament, as near as I can tell, I'm going to show you what cards that I had been keeping in my hand that I would pull out and use in any PvP tournament. So we're going to slowly go through and show you guys how to beat basically any class in the game, practically speaking. All right, so this is these are the two builds you're going to be using. This is your default build. This is your general all-comers PvP build. Some weird things about it. It has the epic boots. Mostly because it has a combination of intellect, and its activatable is absolutely amazing, especially for PvP. So this thing alone will let you beat Ret Paladins. These boots absolutely necessary. You're using, but this is the all-comers build, right? You're using this chest piece instead of a male chest piece because, again, it has intellect. You actually want a fair bit of intellect on your paladin. There's a bit of an intellect breakpoint for paladins in Season of Mastery. It's about a little over 1,300 mana. You can use Recombobulator Ray Trinket to help you hit that breakpoint of mana. But basically what this mana will allow you to do is it'll basically allow you to fight for about 30 seconds. It'll allow you to bubble, cast 2 Freedoms, 2 Avengers, Shield. I think it's like 4 Divine Storms, give or take. And it will also let you do a bubble and do 2 Holy Lights. So you really want to have a certain amount of mana if you do plan on using a Seal of or Divine Storm as opposed to Seal of Martyrdom. Seal of Martyrdom, however, is absolutely amazing. So if your build has a relatively low mana bar, know that Seal of Martyrdom is far better than any other seal that you could possibly use. She is insanely mana efficient. She costs 55 mana to both seal and judge into the target, which is insane. And if you do the math on that, you'll realize that you're actually spirit regenerating as much or more mana over the 10 seconds before you can judge again, which is kind of nuts. Basically, it means that this build right here will actually gain mana over time while being in melee, as opposed to losing mana, because you'll gain more mana than judging and sealing martyrdom costs, and of course Crusader Strike is around there to give you even more mana. So what I've discovered, and Seal of Martyrdom, you only do slightly less damage. I got the visuals for that here in a second. But this is your general all-comers build where you want a nice thick HP bar, you want a nice thick mana bar. Highly advised with this build, use Season or Seal of Martyrdom, just because, well, when you're using Seal of Martyrdom, it means that whatever standing mana bar you have pretty much gets put entirely into healing, which is kind of gross considering how much HP this build actually has. But there's other ways to do it. This build gets modified slightly if you're fighting certain melee classes. So, for example, if you're fighting a Retribution Paladin, you'd want more armor. If you were fighting a Rogue, you would want a bit more armor. You would still probably prefer, you can use Divine Storm or you can use Seal of Martyrdom in either of those fights. But you're going to be doing a lot of healing in those fights. Those fights are really weird. They're some of the harder fights, believe it or not, fighting enemy pure DPS Ret Paladins and fighting enemy rogues. When you're fighting them, you absolutely need the Talwar, basically, and then of course you need your shield. You just need to have super heavy armor. Against the paladins, you basically just lean on their mana bar until they're out of mana and their DPS falls off of a cliff. So you're doing a lot of healing, and you want your armor up quite significantly. Let's actually get the proper armor gear here. So armor, I've already looked at it before. In this gear with armor, you're going to be around 51% armor, if not more armor than that. So it's actually really, really good. Against paladins, the silk boots are amazing. Against rogues, the silk boots are amazing. Against rogues, you're basically just you're basically just surviving their evasion, and then you're channeling. Okay, so let's go through it one at a time, right? How would you beat a rogue with this build? All right, okay. Seal of Martyrdom versus rogues? Absolutely. Seal of Martyrdom versus a Ret Paladin? Yes and no. I prefer Seal of Martyrdom versus Retribution Paladins, but you might be parry hasting the crap out of them because they have increased parry chance. Seal of Martyrdom does suffer, even though she's incredibly mana efficient, she does suffer from Seal of Casino. Let's just start with rogues real fast here. So against rogues, you're going to have to channel your inner Holy Saxy Boy. You're going to have to basically, you trade bubble for evasion, okay? And then when they come back in on you again, so you've healed to full, you've traded bubble for evasion, you probably bandaged yourself, they're coming back in again. That's when you're using your exemplar silk boots. That's when you're going on a run. At some point, you're going on a run. So usually what I like to do is I like to trade bubble for evasion, and then I like to heal myself to full, and then I go for a run. Like I channel my inner Holy Saxy Boy, and I just go for a run. And this running in conjunction with the talents, which is you actually have consecration in this build and healing in combat. In conjunction with the talents, because you're putting consecrations behind you so the rogue can't chase you in a straight line, it forces the rogue to basically burn sprint to catch you. So he's going to catch you with a sprint, or he's going to watch you waste 1,000,000 years worth of time so you can easily get to your bop. He's going to watch you do a drink walk, or drink run, I should say, and heal to full again, just like Saxy Boy. So he has to use sprint there. So he's going to open on you a second time with sprint. And basically, that's when you're just doing everything in your power to survive the nonsense. You're healing through his stuff. You're letting him kick you. You don't really care. You're just healing. You're not even bother. Or you could just, so you'll be doing quite a bit of healing for a while. But then you'll turn around and you'll just beat the crap out of them. You can hodge stun them and channel your inner Holy Saxy Boy and go on a bit more of a run. They really, really hate that. It really screws them over. Basically, you just survive until you have bop, but you have your boots to help you do that. You have all the tools you need to help you survive. And then they're out of sprint. They can't catch you. You're healing to full. They finally catch you again. So they're basically out of cooldowns. And you still have bop available to you. Because, again, you hodged on them and you went for a run, right? And then your full life, your full mana, they're super dead. Without evasion, they can't win a toe-to-toe fight against you. Even more so if you are a dwarf. Odds are you have PvP Trinket rather than Discombobulator Ray at this point, so you can just Trinket their 6-second stun if that's what they choose to do. If you need to catch them, you have Avenger Shield. It's not a big problem whatsoever. One sec, let me pause the video. Damn, I had to yell at my wife. She's making crazy noises apparently. She's a first-time dog owner, so she screws up certain things. The dog's like eating toilet paper, and she wasn't noticing. I'm like, damn, if the dog's not pestering you and he's super quiet, you need to pay attention to him. But she's learning. So yeah, use a Talwar. The Talwar is absolutely amazing for beating rogues to death. You can beat them off you pretty good. You're going to have tons of armor. If you're a dwarf, you have your racial, which is amazing. The boots are amazing, and highly suggested that you use Seal of Martyrdom in this fight, just because it's gonna let you beat the shit out of the rogue and use all your mana for healing, which is amazing. But really what the fight centers around is wasting the rogue's cooldowns and going on basically runs off into Narnia until they're out of cooldowns. But it's a fairly simple matchup, but it's a very long, drawn-out fight. All right, let's talk about Ret Paladins. Ret Paladins are kind of the same deal. You can go toe to toe with them and beat them in a fight using these silk boots alone. Like if you have these silk boots and they don't have it, you just pop that at the beginning of the fight. It's absolutely disgusting how good it is for you. There's not a lot of nuance in that fight in the grand scheme of things. There are two ways to win. The best thing to do is to out heal, is to just out survive them and heal through it and wait till they run out of mana. And when they run out of mana, then you Avenger Shield them, and you go for a run, or you Hodge Stun them and you go for a run. Hodge Stun, not super advised because they probably still have PvP Trinket. I'm not a big fan of using PvP Trinket. I've learned a long time ago that you should not be using PvP Trinket in a Ret v Ret fight. If they Hodge Stun you, just bubble. Like literally just bubble bandage. And if they try running, you have Avenger Shield so you can catch them. You kind of want to waste time. It's not that big of a deal. You'd rather have Recombobulator and Rune of Duty, believe it or not, in that fight. Because Bubble doesn't do anything to help either player in a Ret versus Ret contest because one party or the other has a lot less mana. It just is what it is. So you basically just bop the stun, or you bubble the stun. And you have a major Recombobulate array, which makes you have a lot more mana. But you're going to be doing a lot of healing, and once they run out of mana, you basically go for a run yourself. And you wear different gear at the start of the fight than you do at the end of the fight. So you actually wouldn't wear this gear. Your gear would look a lot different. You would wear a lot of stamina intellect gear at the beginning. I'm talking like of the Eagle gear from the auction house. And no, I'm not joking. So you would have about a 1600 mana bar, and you'd have about a 1600, I have more than 1600 mana. You'd have about a 1700 mana bar, and you'd have about a 1600 HP bar. And you're just surviving until the damn Ret Paladin runs out of mana. It's not like you're not throwing back at him with Crusader Strike and a bunch of other things from time to time. If they're stupid, it's actually even better that you don't go Crusader Strike and you go Hand of Reckoning instead, which just greatly improves your healing. You do have healing combat, and we are going to use it. We'll go back here. And basically, you just survive till they run out of mana. Because once they run out of mana, Freedom costs a ton of mana to cast. It's like 55 mana to cast Freedom. And no Ret Paladin worth their salt is going to have Blessing of Wisdom on. So basically, once they fall below that threshold of not being able to Freedom anymore, they're not going to be able to Freedom for like 10 seconds, which that just happens to be the duration of Avenger Shield, which means you can channel your inner Holy Saxy Boy and you can go for a run. What are you doing on this run? You're drink walking to get your mana back up, and more importantly, you're swapping gear. Now they'll be drinking too, but it's not that impressive, I should say, because they still need to heal themselves. That's the problem. They can't both drink and heal themselves at the same time, which means you're going to gear swap into this gear right here. You're going to drink a bit, then you're going to heal the full, and you're going to jump right back on combat with them. They will be about half life and probably about a third of a mana bar if they know how to drink run. And they're just going to lose that fight. Straight up. Honestly, you can, even this gear right here with the Spider Silk boots, you can more than likely go toe-to-toe with them and just beat them dead. As long as you know to take Rune of Duty over a PvP trinket. You literally just bubble, heal. If they try to get distance, you just Avenger Shield them, catch up to them. It's not that big of a deal. There are multiple ways to win against a Ret Paladin, but they center around needing this weapon and needing the Exemplar boots. My strategy will just be to heal and try to wear on their mana bar, which incidentally actually works really, really well. Okay. Warriors, you can just easily beat them. You're a damn paladin. You have Avenger Shield. Like, what the hell are we even talking about here, right? Against Kitty Cat Druids, because they're the other ones that'll try to have a piece of you. They're super scary for the first 30 seconds. If you're a dwarf, it's a super easy fight. But they're really scary for the first 30 seconds, and then their DPS falls off a cliff because they lose like Mangle or their 30-second fight, something like that. Also highly advised you use Seal of Martyrdom against them because of just the sheer mana efficiency. Divine Storm's not going to do anything for you. whatsoever. And you literally just out heal the kitty cat druid. This is another scenario where it's not the worst idea in the world to have a thicker boy mana bar versus the kitty cat druids. And the other build that I'm about to show you is probably even better for fighting cat druids, believe it or not. Okay, so this is the build you want to use for pretty much any spellcaster there is. The stats here are a little what's the term? Specialized. Let me change it to what it would look like for most enemy spellcasters, right? You'd also change this necklace, I think, but we can keep it there with like 4 stamina. We might change the hood around. I don't think we're changing too terribly much here. But you can see that we have a fair bit of HP. Like, we have 1,500 HP. We have damn near 2,000 mana. Our armor is actually not bad if you're using a shield. So, for example, if we're fighting that kitty cat druid I was talking about, you'd want to use this gear and have a shield. Your armor, not too terribly bad versus the kitty cat druid. But let's look at the real benefit to what this gear is doing for you. So you'll notice that we have 70 spell power worth of damage. 70 spell power actually makes Hammer of Righteousness do crazy, insane things. And here's some of the visuals I wanted to pull up. So you guys know or don't know that I made a video a while ago where I looked at different builds and like their stats and so forth. And this is kind of close to the stat that we're looking at right now. So like 36 base DPS, 1300 HP, 1800 mana, 80 spell power, 5% crit. And this is number 3 on any list here. And it's looking like, what's its performance look like with Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, and Avengers? What's it look like with Seal of Martyrdom, Crusader Strike, Avengers? What does it look like with Exorcism and Divine Storm, and so forth and so on? But you can see here that Seal of Righteousness is doing, in all cases, is doing absolutely insane amounts of damage. Where's it at? Yeah, like 23 DPS from Seal of Righteousness. That's just because you've got like 70, 80 spell power on top of Judgment of the Crusader, and you're using a 1.3 weapon with Seal of Righteousness rank 3. You do an ungodly amount of DPS off of Seal of Righteousness, and you can see the stats over here. So this, for example, is the DPS of a pure DPS rep paladin, like, 20% crit, doesn't have any mana bar. It's literally this thing up here, 60 DPS, 1100 HP, 20% crit, full on in the ret tree against a 30% armored target. He does almost 112 DPS. But we compare that to the holy damage build, which is this, and she does about 77, 75 DPS with no consecration. That's with Divine Storm. You can actually very easily use Divine Storm in this build because you just close with the target with a two-hander and then you swap to the one-hander, you Divine Storm all over them. At any point in time in the combat, you can literally just thunk them with a one-hander, swap over to a two-hander, wait the 1.5 seconds, Divine Storm on them, hit them in melee, swap back to the one-hander. Very, very easy to maintain almost full DPS with Divine Storm. Divine Storm is just here to make it so that if you have a jousting scenario, so you're catching them, they're getting away, you're catching them again, they're getting away again, you can just blast them with a two-hander plus Divine Storm, Crusader Strike as well, and then you swap into the one-hander where the spell power really does its job. But you can see that this build here actually has a frightening amount of DPS to it. Right, frightening amount of DPS. A lot of it is spell power based DPS, but more importantly are her stats. She is a super thick boy mana bar. The HP here is also really, really good. We have a shield on currently, but the HP is actually really good. The talents that this thing uses, she actually does use a Hand of Reckoning, so she has a lot thicker of an HP bar than you think she would. Basically, Hand of Reckoning is worth like a 10% increase in life, and that's if you're not healing yourself. And this build super does heal itself. But I just want you to pay attention to the fact that it has 70 spell power. Its DPS, let's find it, is about 32 DPS. Okay, cool. And she has a hell of a lot more HP than you think she would. So her standing hit points are, let's just find it real fast. Go away. 1550 times 1.1 for a 10% increase. She has effectively about 1700 HP. Okay, that's if she's not healing herself. You have to chew through a 1700 HP bar in order to kill this damn thing. It has more than 1900 mana. If Recombobulator Ray is on here at all, this thing is an ungodly amounts of mana. Yeah. Okay. So that's what it looks like if you're going up against a mage. If you're fighting a kitty cat druid, I would highly suggest this far more durable build. Yeah, I would not have any problems if you took this build against a rep paladin whatsoever. You're lacking in armor, so you do a little bit less damage, but you're still a war in a can. This is absolutely amazing gearing for a paladin. If you're wondering what's going on here, it's mostly caster leather gear with some bits of cloth mixed in, and you're just using the shield. It's massive armor to compensate for the fact that you're doing more of a caster build. The leather caster gear is extremely well-designed PvP gear in the game for any caster and for paladins. So it's just amazing. So this gear right here is a war in a can. I wish I had thought about it earlier. I'd be running around wearing this, believe it or not. But let's look at this more specifically. Okay, so if you were fighting a druid, this would specifically be the gear that you would wear. But I want to save that matchup for last because I'm going to be talking about that for a million years, like how to beat druids specifically. But let's talk about shadow damage dealers really quick, because here's the thing that really makes this build insane amounts of BS. It's the fact that you actually have an alarming amount of shadow resist if you really want it. Okay, so we scroll down here. We're missing a bit of shadow resist. I don't know where exactly. Shadow resist, check, check. Oh, it's the book. All right. So let's say you're fighting an Affliction Warlock, or you're fighting a Shadow Priest. These are going to be your stats. You have about 1400 HP. It's going to be higher than that because you got to add like 140 to that because, 10%. So it's like 1400 plus 140. So your standing HP is almost 1550, right? You have a really thick boy mana bar. You still have the 70 spell power ratio. But more importantly, you have 46 shadow resistance. All right, what exactly is that doing for you? You can get up higher shadow resist if you swap out the chest with another piece of shadow resist, but you lose like 12 damage in healing, and I determined that wasn't really worth it. You could swap out the boots here, so there's like another build but I wanted to be consistent across the builds. But the other build is, let's find it. No, it's not Robes of a Ghoul. It's like Necromancer robes or something. So you go like Necromancy robes. You swap out the planar boots for the Twilight, the leather ones. Is that leather? No, it's flipping out because no. Twilight Avengers, Twilight foot pads, true chance to hit, healing. This is so bad. Improve your chance to hit with spells. I just didn't like it because it has no, click it, fuck you, click it, thank you. It has no stamina on it. So your HP goes like super low, and then you swap this out with like in theory, like the leather ones, but the leather ones have no, they have a spell power damage increase, but they have no spell power. So your spell power drops off a cliff. So now we're at 40 bonus spell damage and healing, but we got 51 shadow resist. I hate it. It's gross. Let's not do this. Terrible, terrible stuff. Is this the right one? I think so. Okay, so we go here. Let's get back our planar boots, and let's get back our Twilight leather robes. Yeah, I think we're back to basics. Yeah, okay. So 46 shadow resist. What the hell does 46 shadow resist get us at level 25? Haven't really tested it. But in theory, if it's the same ratio as it is at level 60, what's going to look like is this. So most shadow resist casters are going to be using the Warsong Gulch trinket, which does have 10 spell power pen. So we need to minus 10 from this resistance. But then we need to divide this by 25. Okay, so at level 60, 60 resistance is worth 15% damage reduction. So so in theory it should hold true that 25 shadow resist at level 25 should also be a 15% damage reduction. So we're going to multiply this by 15 and it'll give us our damage reduction. And very easily you can see we're close to about a 22% damage reduction. I'm just going to say 22% for the sake of my sanity. So we're taking 22% less shadow damage from shadow damage dealers. That means dots, That means Shadow Priests. That means everything. I'm pretty sure that they bug fixed the Zico thing, like the Makara, the whole dot issue. With if the first tick of a dot doesn't get resisted, then every other tick afterwards doesn't get resisted. I'm pretty sure they patched that. Need to test it, but fairly certain. Okay, so you get 22% spell damage reduction. Whoop-de-doo. What are we going to do with that? Well, if you recall, we also have Hand of Reckoning, which means when we fall about around 40% life, the next thing we know, we have an additional 20% damage reduction on top of that. All right, well, what's that going to look like? Well, if you take 100% and you 0.8 would be an 80% damage reduction, so that's what it would look like if with the minus 20%. And then we're going to multiply that by another, I think it's 0.78. And that's going to be another 22% damage reduction. And you can see that we're about a 37% damage reduction. I'll round it up since I rounded down before. Or I round it down since I rounded up before. So it means that when we're around about 40% life or lower against enemy shadow damage users, we're going to have a 37% damage reduction. This is an insane damage reduction, like ludicrous damage reduction, and it's the equivalent of about I think it's close to a 45% increase in life, give or take. Yeah, so if I go 145 and I multiply it by 0.63, I should end up with, yeah, okay, so it's more than that. 150 times 0.63, because 0.63 is going to be a 27% damage reduction. Jesus, it's even more. Okay, 160 times 0.63. Boom. Okay, cool. So it's closer to a 60% increase in health when you're below that level, but more importantly, it's a 60% increase in your effective healing. All right, so your effective healing and your durability skyrocket in this gear when you drop low life. Now, why is that important? It's not really, but it basically just means that this 1400 HP, which is actually 1550 HP in effect, is way, way, way more than that. And your healing is just insane. So basically it means that you can just holy light yourself and run at the enemy for long periods of time. And then you have to stop and holy light yourself and run at the enemy for long periods of time. Your healing is insanely good. Healing efficiency is insanely good. Your overall durability, your mana bar, you have a super thick boy mana bar. Because your durability is super good, you can go long periods of time without having to heal yourself. This means you can put a lot of pressure on the enemy priest and the enemy warlock. It also means you're going to get tons of spirit regeneration. So your mana bar is even thicker than you think it is. So with Recombobulate Array, this mana bar is like 2200, but with all the spirit regeneration, this is going to be closer to like a 2400, 2600 mana bar. Absolutely insanely difficult to kill. A Shadow Priest will themselves before they get anywhere near close to killing this thing. Even a dot you to death, drain your life a druid, like an Affliction warlock, will take 1,000,000 years to kill you with this. This 37% damage reduction really screws over life drain on you from warlocks. It screws it over in two ways. It gives a 27% chance to resist it, because you have a natural 5% chance to resist on your character, and then it will add on top of that whatever resistance you have, and we have like a 22% chance to resist, right? So we have a 27% chance that we just straight up ignore, like we just full resist their life drain. And when that happens, they can't cast it again for another 15 seconds, which is disgusting. Even when they get it on you, it's operating at a 37% damage reduction, which means they're getting 30% less health back. And if you recall correctly, we do a rather terrifying amount of DPS in this build. By the way, this is the other trinket. We do a rather terrifying amount of DPS in this build. But there's something more important to it, and that is how you deal with fears. Inspiration Exemplar, right. So, if we look at the talents, we actually have Unyielding Faith. This is why we're so deep in we're so deep in this tree for two reasons. to get increased healing efficiency and to get Unyielding Faith. Also, I did mention it with the rogues, but if you have Consecration, it completely neutralizes Vanish. Like, they vanish, you consecrate it, it pops them out immediately, 100% of the time. Absolutely disgusting against rogues. Love it, love it, love it. But Unyielding Faith plus any kind of resistance gear is kind of a pain in the ass for warlocks. So if a warlock tries to cast a fear on you, he has to root himself in place for 1.5 seconds. And even then, it's going to be a 37% chance the fear bounces off of you. Why is that? 22% chance to resist the fear from resistances, 5% base, that makes it 25%, and then this is an additional 10%, which makes it 37% chance. So the 37% chance that this warlock stood in place for 1.5 seconds, casted a fear, it whiffed on you, you're now on top of him, beating the crap out of him, it's a really bad time, he has to try to do it all over again. This is where Inspiration Exemplar comes into play. So I watched a video where Savix was trying to, he'd see warlocks casting fear, so he would try to refresh Inspiration Exemplar during and batch it with the fear cast, so that the Inspiration Exemplar would instantly remove the fear. All right, you follow me on this? Because if you cast Inspiration Exemplar, it pulses immediately upon cast. So we tried to batch them together. This is a really bad idea. From an MLG perspective, from a top-tier gaming perspective, not the worst idea to try in the world, but I got a better one, basically. So when Savix succeeded at doing this, and I never saw him succeed at doing it, in theory, it'll cause the fear to be canceled immediately. But what would often happen is he would fail it, and it would cause him to run away for a grand total of 4 seconds, because apparently Inspiration Exemplar pulses every 4 seconds, give or take. I counted. 4 seconds is a number that we can use. So how you're going to use this is if you see a warlock casting fear, you are going to, your reaction will be to refresh Inspiration Exemplar. Are you following me on this? If you see them casting fear, you refresh Inspiration Exemplar. That means that they will have been casting fear for about 0.5 seconds before you clicked your Inspiration Exemplar button, right? Because your brain has to register, then your figures have to find the button. Cool, we've refreshed it. Maybe you have to wait for a GCD or something like that, blah, 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 blah. You'll notice that we are using a super fast one-handed weapon of 1.3 attack speed, and we're using Seal of Righteousness rank 3. You may or may not know this, but Seal of Righteousness causes ×2 pushback against spellcasters. And because they're doing a 1.5 second cast and our weapon is a 1.3 speed weapon, it means that fear of theirs is not going to be a 1.5 second cast anymore. It's going to be a 4 second cast every single time. Why is this? Well, if they rooted themselves in let's say you weren't physically on top of them when they're trying to hit you with a fear, right? This doesn't change the fact that you can easily judge them, which will, if you don't know how pushback works, the first pushback is 1 second, and the next one is half a second, and it literally just halves itself into oblivion. All right, so it goes like 1 second pushback, half a second pushback, quarter of a second pushback, half of a quarter of a second, half of that, half of that, half of that. There is no immunity to pushback. It just halves itself into oblivion until the spell goes off. So the sheer act of you just judging damage on them while they're casting the fear makes it a 2.5 second cast. Right? If you waited a second and then you judged damage on them, it makes it a 2.5 second cast. It's a 20-yard range spell. You're gonna get on top of them before they're done casting the spell. You can cover 20 yards into melee range in less than 2 seconds. So you better believe if you're making off judgment alone, it's going to be a 4 second spell cast. And it's also not like you don't have Hodge stun if you really wanted to use that or something. It doesn't matter. But basically, they're going to root themselves into place. They're going to try to cast a fear, and you're going to be getting on top of them and introducing them to maximum pushback possible, whether they like it or not. So it means that fear is going to take a whopping 4 seconds to cast. And when they're finally finished casting it, one of two things happens. 37% chance it gets resisted. If it doesn't get resisted, congratulations. We refreshed Inspiration Exemplar like 3.5 seconds ago, and the thing has a 4-second tick cycle. We're going to be running away for about 0.5 seconds, maybe a second at most. Like, worst case scenario, we're running away for a second, right? Inspiration Exemplar is going to have our back. We're just going to spin around and just start running right after them again. So you catch them, unironically. You don't have Avenger Shield to catch them. Instead, you're catching them off of Inspiration Exemplar because they have to root themselves in place in order to cast the fear. You're guaranteed to get on top of them in that amount of time. And Inspiration Exemplar is just not going to let you physically get off of them. And it's not like you don't have Bubble and PvP Trinket theoretically to, if you don't like what you're seeing for whatever reason, to just pop it off of you and just jump all over them. You're going to stick to an enemy Warlock like glue, and you're basically going to be laughing at Shadow Priests, right? Because their fear is on a 30-second cooldown. But you're going to be sticking on Warlocks like glue. They can't possibly kill you. Your healing is too efficient. Your mana is too efficient. Even with you having to stop and heal yourself from time to time, it's not that big of a deal. And you do insane amounts of DPS. Again, you have that 77 DPS with this build. Absolutely terrifying. The other thing that we need to talk about is, what does your healing look like in this build? Because that becomes super important when you're dealing with, druids, right? Oh, and you also have the Spider Silk boots, if for whatever reason they're just here because of stats and spell damage and healing, and it is what it is. But if you don't like what you see for whatever reason, pop the activatable on your silk boots and start healing yourself. You'll be fine. Because at that point, the damage reduction is legitimately insane. You're not dying anytime soon. So it's like, let's say you go for a heal, they like grenade stun you. You go for a heal again, they cancel it with a fear. You're like, fine, whatever. You just pop your silk boots and you just start healing yourself some more. And you're not dying anytime soon. You're perfectly fine. Everything's fine. You may or may not have a Recombobulator Ray Trinket. Didn't even have to bubble. Everything's fine, right? So this is a really good emergency toolkit usage. But the last thing to talk about here is, what the hell does our healing look like? This is the other thing about this, is that your healing is actually God tier in this build, believe it or not. It's a combination of the effects of... how are we doing in this video so far? Damn, we're approaching the hour mark. Jesus. Your healing is going Super Saiyan due to a number of synergies that are in play. Part of it is a 3 out of 3 healing light. But we'll just look at it base. All right, holy... Wait. I think the spells are right down here, aren't they? Go over to talents. Gear. No, it's like talents. Like weights. No, talents. My spells should be here, but they're not. But let's look at holy light. I think it's 3 that we're using. Or is it 4? We're using 4, we're using 3. I think we're using 4. Yeah. Okay. So this is Holy Light 4, 190 mana, 2.5 second cast, 1322 to 3688. This is not enough healing at all. Plus 368 equals divided by 2 equals. So your average healing for Holy Light with no bonus spell power or no bonus anything whatsoever is about 350. That's if you factor in critical strike, right? It's absolutely terrible. This is not enough mana in season or healing in Season of Discovery to even make it worth your time to Holy Light. You'll just get heal locked and killed, right? You'll be Holy Light, dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. However, if you start pumping these numbers up, things start getting a little interesting. So for example, we are going to multiply that. Let's say we have 3 out of 3 healing light, like we do, 350 times 1.12. So you can see that pumps it up by a little over 40, right? Not super impressive. Our average heal now is like 400 if you factor in a critical strike, but I might have already factored in critical strike. So we'll just say it's like 390, not looking too terribly good, right? Holy Light spell power ratio without 3 out of 3 healing light is 64. With 3 out of 3 healing light, however, it is 71%. So you can see that healing light is doing even more for us when we factor in spell power. So there's some double dipping here, right? So now we have plus 70 spell power and healing. And there's even, if you want more healing for whatever reason, You can swap out these for the leather here. Where's the leather? That's not it. Yeah, this is it. You can swap out these gloves and increase your healing substantially. So you can see here our spell damage went down by 4, which is bad. But our healing is now upwards of like 86. And when we're talking about beating up druids, this is going to become important in a moment. All right, cool. So let's say we actually have the 86 plus healing. And we're going to take 71% of that because that's what our holy lights look like when we have 3 out of 3 plus healing. And you can see we're going to add 61 to the total. If you remember, it was like 392, I think it was. Plus 61. Okay, so now we're at like, 455-ish healing per holy light for like 190 mana. This is serviceable, right? This isn't the worst thing in the world. But you'll also recall that the build takes a Hand of Reckoning, which means that when we drop below 20% life, or not 20% life, when we drop, when we're around about 40% life, we're taking 20% damage reduction. This has the effect of increasing your effective healing by 20%, believe it or not. So we actually have to, by 25%, 1.25. So I actually have to increase this by like 25%. And you can see that in reality, our holy lights are actually healing us closer for about 570 once you factor in critical strike in the grand scheme of things. 570. This is actually a really potent heal. If you want to know how potent that heal is, our base healing, if you recall, was about 390. If I multiply that by 50%, you can see we're still not even approaching what our holy light is doing for us now. That means that my non-critical holy lights are healing me for as much as other paladins' critical holy lights. If you're following me on this, right? And then if you recall, we do tons of damage. Our HP bar is a hell of a lot thicker than you think it would be. And this isn't even the right gear, right? This is us still dealing with enemy spellcasters. So this gets way worse. This is a 25% damage reduction. If we were fighting like a Shadow Priest or a Warlock, we're not working with that 25% damage or 20% damage reduction. We're working with a 37% damage reduction, which, as you recall, is like a 60% increase in life, which is also a 60% increase in healing. So I can do that real fast if you want. I think it was like 450, 1.25. Yeah. So it was closer to like 450. Now rather than 1.25, now it's 60%. Right, which is like 720 healing per holy light. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. With that super thick boy mana bar, you're not dying at all to shadow damage dealers. All right, cool. So that is Warlock dead. That's all kinds of Warlocks super fucking dead. That's a Shadow Priest camp that none of them can possibly kill us. We're going to do too much damage to them. We're going to be too relentless on them. They can't eat and drink. They're gonna go trying to kill us. We're just super hard to kill for them. Insanely durable, super thick mana bar, crazy stuff. All right, let's talk about the big boy in the room, which is Druid, which is the harder one. So on our Plains Ring, because it's got mana, and against Druid, we're also going to want to use these gloves, believe it or not, for the increased healing capability. All right, and this might get swapped out for something else. I want the one that has Spirit. Yeah. I think it's the one with Spirit we want. Yeah. So 6 stam, 6 Spirit. We can keep the cowl. And we get rid of this in exchange for a buckler, because the buckler has lots of Spirit on it. All right, boom. All right, let's look at our mana bar. Let's look at the situation. Now we're fighting a Druid. What is our standing HP? 1576, but we have the other thing going on. All right, we'll do it. 1576 times 1.1 equals. So our effective HP is almost 1750. That's a shit ton of HP for a Druid to have to get through. Our mana bar is super thick. Odds are you wouldn't have this Rune of Duty here. You'd have a Recombobulator Ray instead. But there's going to be lots of gear swapping opportunities in this whole thing. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? Signia of the Alliance. Where is the Recombobulator? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's just say we have 1700 HP. Give or take. But this thing also increases our health by like 200. It increases the mana pool we have. We have tons of mana. More importantly, we actually have a lot of spirit here, believe it or not. Where's our spirit at? Yeah, it's a fair bit of spirit. Okay, so how does this build work versus druids? So druids actually have, and I have some visuals around here, I think, for us. I can pull up some visuals really fast while we talk about this. But let me talk about it, and then I'll show you the visuals, okay? Druids have Starfall, and Starfall is a real cock in the ass. Like, let's be honest, right? 4 mana, infinite range, hits you on average for about 300 arcane damage every 6 seconds. However, it does have some major, it hits you for 280, and then if it crits, it does times 2 damage, so I just say it has about 300 average damage every 6 seconds. Crazy amounts of DPS. It has major weaknesses to it, though. 6-second cooldown is a really, really unfortunate cooldown for the druid. In fact, a really good druid would probably hold their Starfall for like a tenth of a second and get a drink tick in before doing another Starfall, because getting out of combat in Classic WoW is 6 seconds. If you haven't touched your enemy for 6 seconds, then you get out of combat. You need 7 seconds to get even a spirit regeneration tick. So you can see that Starfall at 6 seconds is both a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing about it is that if you're spamming it, you get no spirit regeneration whatsoever. If you're not spamming it, although I think druids have some talent points that help them with that, but I can't remember what they're linked to exactly. But anyways, if they're spamming Starfall, which they always are, they're not getting any spirit tick regeneration whatsoever, and they're not allowed to leave combat. You're not allowed to leave combat as the victim, and they're not allowed to leave combat as the caster of the spell, believe it or not. But if they hold off on it to get a drink tick, that means that or to gear swap, that means you can get a drink tick in as well, which is really, really bad for Starfall. So they're basically locked into using Starfall on cooldown. And even though it's hyper mana efficient at like 4 mana, it has a hidden mana cost behind it in the fact that you can't spirit regeneration off of it whatsoever. So in reality, she costs closer to 30 mana, believe it or not, rather than 4 mana if you factor in the spirit regeneration. And since since our healing is so terrifyingly efficient, okay, when we are low life, we get to spirit regenerate, and the druid does not. All right, that is important. Your talents stay about the same. Divine Storm is perfectly fine. Seal of Martyrdom is also really good. In fact, you'd be using Avenger's Shield for this one. Okay, so this is what you'd look like fighting a druid. Same gear, same talents, is what it is, right? All right, let's talk about this. Let's look at Starfall really fast. So Starfall does 300 damage divided by 6 every 6 seconds. So it does about 50 DPS to you, which is kind of nuts, right? For 4 mana or for the but you can't spirit regenerate, right? Pretty intense, pretty insane. Okay, well, what does it look like when we're actually getting hit with this damn thing? Well, if you recall, our heals are like, are almost 450 per holy light. And we have to cut this thing down by about 20%. So we're assuming you're not going to want to heal the full lot against the druid. You're really going to want to lean into the 20% damage reduction from Hand of Reckoning. So rather than hitting you for 300, it's going to hit you for 240. And if we multiply that by 2, you can see that we're barely out DPSing a holy light, right? We are barely out DPSing a holy light. And that's with 2 Starfalls. Okay, that means that what I get to do as the paladin is, and we also have the exemplar boots, which are just going to make it worse, right? Because that 30% damage reduction is worth its weight in gold, especially combined with the 20% damage reduction. Absolutely insane. Okay, but basically what that means is I can live around the 45%, 40% HP mark because of how Hand of Reckoning works. Basically, it says any damage that would drop you below 35% life is reduced by 20%, right? That means if you get hit for 1,000 damage and you're 50% life, the entirety of that 1,000 damage will be reduced by 20%. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I need to go test it. Believe it or not, I could be wrong about that. Or it works the other way, where it'll be like X amount of that damage. It has no reduction to it, but anything that dropped you below 35% life has a 20% damage reduction to it. Anyways, basically, it's important to realize that 20% of my life, I'm at 1536 times 0.35. Boom. Yeah, so I have like over 500, almost 600 HP. 1536 times 0.4 equals, if it works the way I think it is. Yeah, so I have like 1600 HP worth of a 20% damage reduction to play with. The Starfalls, if I recall, are hitting me for like 240, right? So I minus like, 240 from that, and that's including critical strike chance. I minus 240 from that, and we still have plenty of HP left to work with. So it's going to take about 3 Starfalls with the damage reduction to kill me. But that means that I can eat Starfall. I can eat 2 Starfalls, and then I have to Holy Light. And then I can eat 2 Starfalls, and then I have to Holy Light. Well, what does life look like under these conditions? This is 12 seconds where I don't have to cast a spell. If I minus 5 seconds from that, that means I have 7 seconds worth of spirit regeneration. I divide that by 2. It means I get about 3, almost 4 spirit regeneration ticks. So we're just going to say that I get 3 spirit regeneration ticks while in this build. Okay? Now keep in mind, right? The cycle of life is Starfall, and then I have to Holy Light myself, and then there's 2 more Starfalls, then I have to Holy Light myself, and there's 2 more Starfalls, and then I have to Holy Light myself. Right? That's the cycle of life. And in theory, I will be slowly dying, right? Because they're doing 480 damage to me every 12 seconds with this spell alone, and I'm only healing for 450. So I'm slowly dying. Boo-hoo, woe is me. And then I pop my boots, and I just go back up to full life, and it doesn't even matter. It's like, okay, whatever. I'll just counter that, yada, yada, yada. But we're slowly dying in theory, right? If the druid ran infinitely and I chased after him infinitely, and all he was doing is starfalling me, and all I was doing is this rotation of 2 holy lights, how long is this going to last, basically? Well, spirit regeneration in this gear is about 26 per tick. So we multiply that by 3, so you can see that we have like 70. We're going to be getting 78 mana from spirit regeneration. I'm just going to round that up to 80 for the sake of my sanity, so I can keep track of things. You also use Blessing of Wisdom in this build. And Blessing of Wisdom is over there giving you 3 mana per second, and we multiply that by 12, and then I'm going to add 80 to that, and boom. You can see that we're going to have about 115 mana pullback every 12 seconds while slowly dying to their nonsense. If you recall, the Holy Light is 190 mana. I reduce that by 115. That means I'm burning 75 mana every 12 seconds. I have this uber giga chad mana bar. Like, the mana bar is not messing around. It's going to be like about 2,000 mana with the recombobulator ray. Like, Jesus. Absolutely ludicrous. So we need to take 2,000 mana, 2,000, yes, and divide that by 75, times that by 12, divide it by 60, and you can see that it's going to take the druid a little over about 5 minutes and 20 seconds to kill us. Okay, you follow me on this? And that's without using the boots, that's without using bubble, that's without using bandages, that's without using any additional stuff that you have going on whatsoever. 5 fucking minutes to kill you. Alright, you follow me on this? Does that sound nuts? Hopefully it does. Basically, it means that the Holy Light only costs us 75 mana. Due to all the efficiencies. And at 75 mana for 450, 75, I want 450, that's the heal, divided by 75. You can see that we have about a 6-to-1 healing efficiency ratio if we're worshipping at the altar of spirit regeneration and MP5. What does all this mean? What this means is that the druid cannot kill you in anything remotely resembling a timely fashion Okay? Uh, without dipping into their far less mana efficient spells. So we're talking Moonfire, we're talking Insect Swarm, we're talking all the spells that are far less mana efficient. They they need to dip into those in order to actually kill you in any timely manner, and that's going to cause them to. It's also important to note that these Starfalls aren't free. They're still 4 mana apiece, and we were doing this for 340 seconds or whatever the hell it was. It was like 5.33333 times 60. Yeah, this many seconds. So 320 seconds. Cool. Divided by 6 equals times 4 equals. He spent about 215 mana on Starfalls in this theoretical. He's not spirit regenning. In this theoretical 5.3 minute running in a straight line Narnia type scenario. That's not chump change. That's a fair bit of mana, believe it or not. Okay. Now I need the visuals. Okay, so the first visual we need to talk about is our theoretical druid is trapped in a dueling circle with us. Right? If he's not in a dueling circle with us, the fact that we can run for over 5 minutes anywhere we want to in a zone is kind of insane and intense. If he gets close enough to use Starfall or Moonfire and stuff against us, that means he's within Avenger's Shield range. If you recall, we took Avenger's Shield with this build. If you Avenger's Shield them, it's going to cause them to need to shift form, so they're going to have to shift into Cat, and they're going to have to shift out of Cat. That costs them a rather hefty amount of mana, believe it or not, at this level, which is a problem because they're expending a considerable amounts of mana just to be able to Moonfire spam us, and every 30 seconds we're going to be able to Avenger Shield them and force them to shift. That's if they weren't trapped in a dual circle with us. Because they're trapped in a dual circle with us, it means that it's going to take 1,000,000 years for them to kill us. And periodically, from time to time, we are going to be putting a hell of a lot of pressure on their mana bar that they really, really wish we would just fuck off and die. Which means, in totality, the druid is going to and eventually die. That is the eventual conclusion of everything I'm trying to say here. But let me just Control C, Control V, and then I need to... this is always super annoying. Control C, Control V, and then paste that there, and then we want a little tiny little box. Yeah. They changed MS Paint, and it really pisses me off because it means like if I try to move this happens. And so it makes it more difficult to make the videos that I used to make, which is really really annoys the crap out of me. Control V. All right, cool. All right. But here's how you advance on a druid in a dual circle, right? I need to make an entire video on this, but this is just a TLDR version. I promise I'll make you guys a video on how to actually chase people in the dueling circle tomorrow. Believe it or not, I'm the best in the world at this. I've never seen anybody do it better than me. I use my time in the Navy, decreasing distance, steady bearing and decreasing distance. So you end up running parallel to them sometimes. You end up, how do I put this? Let's say the druid is running this way, right? He's running along the dual circle, and then you are stupid enough to like chase after him in a straight line, right? Or are you like he's here and you're chasing that way, and he's here and you're chasing that way. So you're doing this weird little arc thing. He's doing this arc thing. You're being super inefficient with your running. This is the TLDR version. Control Z, Control Z. It would be far more efficient for you if you just knew that he was running in this direction, and then you could run this direction and make the intercept, right? So you're not traveling in this stupid arc, and he's not to try to counter his straight line. That's really, really bad. Like, how do you even do that? The answer is steady bearing, decreasing distance. So basically, he's currently at the 12 o'clock position from us. No matter where he runs, if he runs this way, if he runs that way, if he runs at him, just run in a manner that keeps him in the 12 o'clock position mark. So if he starts running, if he starts running this way and he's just going to keep traveling, like this is his line of travel. Let's say this is his line of travel, and you're actively chasing him. in order to keep him at a 12 clock position, you'll find your paladin just naturally running to the proper location. Again, I'll make a video on it tomorrow. This is just the TLDR version, but there's a proper way to chase enemies. There's an improper way to chase enemies. This comes to a head when you get really close to them about this mark here, because they'll be trying to run this way, and if you're chasing around them, you'll be doing a stupid arc, which is really bad. However, if you're keeping them in the 12 o'clock position, you'll find yourself just strafing to keep them in the 12 o'clock position, and the distance will be decreasing. You'll eventually make it intercept. Anyways, I will make a video on that tomorrow. But just know that what you're supposed to do against the druid is you're supposed to pressure them until they get until you're about here. And then you take the time to, like, heal yourself to full. They'll start running funny because they're at the dual circle's edge, so they'll start doing weird stuff like this, like literally running this way. And you'll just keep them at the 12 o'clock position at all times, which means you'll start strafing on them. This when they start getting, you'll get closer and closer to them, which will look like this. Let me actually make lines. Let's pretend I actually know what the hell I'm doing. So you want the red one. So you'll pressure them until about this point, and then they'll stop running away from you in a direct line. They'll start running more laterally. And once you start seeing them run more laterally, you need to stop what you're doing, and you need to heal yourself. So I'll put a heal circle here. Druid will have ran laterally. So now we want a black one. So the druid's starting to run laterally now. Right? The druid's like over here or something stupid like that. You've healed yourself. It's not that big of a change. When you're done healing yourself, you're going to keep him in the 12 o'clock position or whatever position he's currently in, right? So he's at a 1 o'clock position. You're going to keep yourself at a 1 o'clock position, which means you'll probably have a run angle similar to this, if that makes any sense. Your run angle will look similar to this. If he keeps running this way, you're going to make an intercept. 100% guaranteed. Sometimes I'll flip around again and start running the other way. There's a little bit of a technique to help you do this, but I'll make a video on it, right? I'm trying to do the TLDR version. But eventually what all this leads to is that, Control-C, Control-V, is that the druid is basically here in the circle, and you're almost physically on top of him, and you have plenty of life. You have plenty of life. And you're basically physically on top of them. Now, you haven't used Avenger's Shield yet. This is mission critical. You want to catch them in the dueling circle without using Avenger's Shield. Right? You want to do this. Also, in order to get increased speed over you, they have to go into cat form. Cat form means they can't do Starfalls anymore. They can do Sunfire spam if they have Sunfire. But that does basically no damage compared to Starfall or Star Surge. There it is. It does no damage against Star Surge. So you're basically regenerating mana. Every second he's in cat form, you're gaining life. Basically, you're not dying anymore. You're actually gaining life. But let's say he has cat form. He has feline swiftness, right? He'll have to shift into cat to get away from you. The moment he shifts into cat, you blast him with an Avenger's Shield. He'll have to shift out of form in order to get out of the Avenger's Shield slow, then shift back into cat again, then take 1,000,000 years to run the hell away from you, okay? Then he has to shift out back into human form again to start star surging you again. During this time, he is wasting so much mana from all this shifting, and you've caught him a few times to give him the business, which means he's taking quite a bit of damage, which means at some point he's got to spend mana on healing himself. This is how you win the mana war, is what I'm trying to say. If he does not have feline swiftness, you've pushed him up against the wall, you're going to start giving him the business. He is going to have to do something to get the hell away from you. Usually it's not going to work. Usually how that's going to look is he's going to have to like war stomp you or grenade stun you, or he's going to have to, this is if he doesn't have feline swiftness, so he can't move faster in cat form, right? You haven't used Avenger's Shield yet. Mission critical that you force this fucker to need to get around you, and you force him into melee with you without using Avenger's Shield. If you can do that, their mana woes will exponentially increase. Okay, you follow me on this? If they don't have feline swiftness, they have to do something to get away from you. When they finally do get away from you, that's when you hit them with the Avenger's Shield. They'll have to shift to get out of it. Not that big of a deal because it's so much mana for them to have to heal up from the Avenger's Shield. So much mana for them to have to shift to get out of the Avenger's Shield. That's what you really want. You'll pause, heal yourself to full, and you'll rinse and repeat the whole process over again. You'll just push them up against the wall. Tell them that my mana bar is deeper than yours. My healing efficiency is greater than yours. When you're in melee with them, you're introducing them to your own brand of infinite damage for no mana. You're going to win a mana war against a druid. It is what it is. All right, so let me pause the video and give you a few examples of exactly what this looks like. Okay, I'm going to show you some actual visual examples of me doing this in actual combat. Let me pause the video. All right, I found it. Okay, so this is from the failed video I did. We got into some PvP at the end of it, so I'm remaking this video, right? But here's some of the PvP stuff from it. So you can see I'm near full life. I'm full mana. My mana bar is about 1,000 mana, maybe 1,100 mana. I could jump on the character really fast, but it's a super low mana bar. I am using Seal of Martyrdom because my mana is so low, because I just need the increased mana efficiency. And we're about to run into a fully geared Star Surge Druid that does not have Feline Swiftness, does not have Insect Swarm, so I don't know what spec he is. But I'll just let it play real fast here. But I just killed him recently, and then he killed me at the same time. I could show you that if you want to. But here he is. Okay, so let's check his mana bar out for a second. So I have about 1,000 mana to my name. He has maybe 55% of a mana bar, maybe 60% of a mana bar in the grand scheme of things. He's going to kill me in this fight, but I want you to watch how hard it is. Now keep in mind I have no spell power on this gear whatsoever. I have food buff on, which means I got like 1,766 HP. So we can look at his Star Surge. Okay, so his Star Surge did 286 damage. The base damage of Star Surge is 200, which means it's got a 100% spell power ratio behind it. Fuck you. I hate this. Whoever invented this needs to die. Jesus. So this means this is a fully geared Hypnos over there is a fully geared a druid. He's got it all, right? He's got like 86 spell power behind him. That is scary. The Moonfire also did a considerable amount of damage, but I'll just let it play out. What's really going to screw me here is this Crocolisk. So this Crocolisk is going to make my life an absolute living hell because it's literally adding like 15 DPS to this mix, which I just can't. The Star Surge alone is already doing 50 DPS. This guy's Wraths are for free, I think. Yeah, you see the Wrath come out of him. It didn't change his mana bar whatsoever. And I'm just gonna have to. I'm gonna have to heal myself until Hypnos over there runs out of mana. But you can see he's already super low mana, and it's a question. Oh, he had to heal himself, right? The heals are the healing yourself is not cheap at all for a druid. Not cheap in the slightest for a druid. But you can see he healed himself. He's already super low mana. I'm just gonna have to heal the full. Just is what it is. And this, I realize that the pushback might kill me alone, so I have to switch the auras. So this fucking Crocolisk does even more DPS. Just crit me right there. But look at Hypnos mana. Recombobulator Ray. I don't have. So what am I missing? I'm missing 86 bonus healing for what I should be, right? If I was actually fighting him in PvP. Like if this was a serious dueling tournament. I'm missing 86 plus healing. I'm missing a Hand of Reckoning so that most of these heals are 25% stronger. And yet, look at the mana. I'm missing over twice the mana bar. But look at how our guy is. And he's just wrathing for free into me. Those are rank 1 Wraths because they have spell power ratio behind them. And you can just look at the situation. He's super So if I didn't have this Croc on me, I would have hundreds of more HP. I would have far more mana. If I was properly geared for the duel, in theory, Hypnos would have another half of a mana bar, right? But I would have twice the amount of mana that I have now. I'd have far more healing efficiency, far more damage reduction. You can just see how severely the oomage is for Paladin versus druid in this scenario. This druid's going to die, by the way, but it's not really up to me. He's trying to wrath me to death. It's just not working. He's actually for Starfalls. If you didn't notice there, he finally got enough mana for a Starfall. But he was wrathing me because he didn't even have mana for Starfall at the end there. Didn't even have the 4 mana because there's no spirit regeneration. Alright, so that's one fight. Let me pause the video and go find another one, so you know I'm not jonesing you too hard. Alright, let's do this real fast. So I didn't actually talk about how to deal with hunters in a previous video I did. Against hunters, specifically what you want to do against hunters is you do like an all-in technique. So what you want to do is you want to run at the hunter. That's something I have to talk about. You pin them up here again, just like you would against a druid. So you do the same thing against them where you push forward and then you get them into like this little corner here. So they'll stop running away from you in a straight line. They start running laterally. Once you see them running laterally, or you could suspect they're going to have to start running laterally soon, you stop and you start holy lighting yourself. Now there's going to be a pet on you during this, right? But you're not. You can use the healing gear if you want. In this fight, it might even be superior for all I know, but the other gear is perfectly serviceable. But the sequence of events is you either do holy light, or you do double holy light, and then you go after them. You basically take the time to push them up against the wall, heal yourself to full, and then nail them with Avenger's Shield, and you go on them. But when you use your freedom is really important here. So for example, let's say it's just 2 holy lights that I need to do, right? As opposed to 3 holy lights that I need to do. The sequence of events will be holy light, freedom, holy light, go. Hodge stun the pet because it's physically on top of you. Avenger shield, and then just go after the hunter full bore. If I need 3 holy lights, it's going to be holy light, freedom, and then holy light, and then everything else. Stun pet, Hodge stun pet, and then go. Why do I need to freedom before I do a holy light here? With this build? Well, it's because one of the worst things, when you get on top of the hunter, you're going to do a full rotation on him. You're going to get all your abilities on cooldown. Then you're going to bubble before the pet gets back on you and does a ton of damage to you because you stunned him off into Narnia, right? You're going to bubble and you're going to you're just going to wait out the 8 seconds of bubble, and once a bubble falls off, you're going to rotate on the hunter all over again, and by that time he's pretty much going to be all but dead. So you basically get 2 full rotations on him for free while keeping your health super high. There's a danger, however, in that your freedom is still on cooldown because you used it to help close the distance because he concussive shotted you. Concussion shot will cause you to move slow for like 4 seconds. You Hodge stun the pet for 4 seconds. That's not an ideal situation. You're going to be highly tempted to want freedom while you're closing the distance from A to B. But if you wait for the concussive shot and then you freedom, by the time when bubble falls off of you, freedom is still going to have 4 seconds, 3 or 4 seconds left on cooldown before you can use it again. So if they wing clip you immediately, there's a risk they can get away from you, which is why you actually want to activate your freedom a few seconds ahead of time before you push into them, because the 10 seconds is plenty of time for you to close the distance with them. They can't concussive shot you whatsoever, but it'll fall off within a few seconds of you being in combat with them, which means you can wait a couple of seconds before you bubble, and then freedom will just be right off of cooldown as your bubble falls off, because bubble lasts 8 seconds. Freedom is a 10-second basically window where you can't use it. Everything lines up perfectly. So it's holy light, freedom, holy light, go, or it's holy light, freedom, holy light, go. But basically you need to freedom, you need to holy light yourself, and then you need to get after this druid or this hunter. Why do I bring that up? Because there's other things that you can do versus them that I'm about to showcase right here. Where if you're caught by a hunter in the open world, you can do a running battle with their pet. This means that you're basically strafe running sideways as much as possible, minimizing the DPS of the hunter as much as possible, cleansing their dots and so forth and so on. But you can easily win a 1v1 fight with this gear versus a hunter. I'm going to try to showcase that here in a second. This hunter, if I recall correctly, he might have removed it or it might have fallen off, but it used to have stamina buff on it. It was kind of ridiculous. Well, let's just see what life looks like if we're just doing nothing but trying to kill a hunter. And yeah, it does quite a bit of damage. And this is, I was killing the hunter pets even before the nerf. But you can see even without it. So I'm pretending I need to heal myself because it theoretically is a hunter also blasting the crap out of me. But you can see that the pet doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell. You can tell how scary the hunter is by these. Yeah, so 140 wind serpent hit means that this is actually a very well-geared hunter, believe it or not. But I kept typing things and it kept screwing up the duels, so I didn't bother to showcase that at all. So yeah, so you can easily kill the hunter pet if you have to, and then just move on to the hunter. But that's more of an open world thing where you can't push them up against a dueling circle. If you can't push them up against a dueling circle, then they're dead basically. You were watching how many millions of years it took that pet to do any real damage to you. It's because your HP bar is too thick. Also, if you recall, we have the planar boots, the boots that cause us to take 30% less damage. You want to activate those boots right before you come out of bubble. That's because that's a smart hunter will have turned off the lightning breath of their pet. And so the pet is going to be full energy. When you come out of bubble, there's going to be flanking strikes. You're going to get hit with a lot of damage right when you come out of bubble. Not that big of a deal if you just activate a 30% damage reduction for 6 seconds, right? Like, damn, okay. You're just gonna, and if you have freedom up, you're just gonna cut the hunter to absolute pieces. They just die like they fold like wet tissue paper if you have a stamina heavy build. Not that interesting, right? But I promised you this other druid fight here, didn't I? Yeah. It might be here where we died. Yeah, okay, right here. All right, let's go back a little bit. So Hypno was not out here alone. He was out here with a Chad warrior with a Hydra blade. So we're running for our lives currently. He stopped a Wrath there, which was really bad because I think I don't know, maybe it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But I'm starting to take hits. I'm consecrating for what it's worth. I'm curious if there's any stealthies back there, but I'm mostly doing it to keep them in combat, but it's a waste of mana. But what we're going to want to see here is at some point I'm going to stop, I'm going to turn, I'm going to fight, despite all these consecrations wasting tons of mana. And we just want to check out what our boy's mana bar looks like. Not his, I accidentally healed the mage. So you see he's full mana somehow. Somehow, some way he's full mana again. I guess I can't go back 5 seconds with this stuff. He's probably a drink. No, he's just Starfallen. So he's being very mana conscious. So he's learning his lesson, right? I'm still not in the right gear. I'm in the same gear, like 1,000 mana bar. I get a little bit of healing from the mage, so he decides to go after the mage. But an Avenger Shield misses, which is really, really bad. But he's going to let me physically get on him here a little bit. And I just watch his mana bar, like how bad things look when you're actually physically on them and they need to heal from a mana bar perspective. So he finished off the mage, but you can see he's already half mana just because he needs to stop me from murdering him. Right? And I got bubble and I got nothing left. But you can see just how mana inefficient it becomes for them if you're allowed to put any kind of damage on them whatsoever. So that's basically what I wanted to show there whatsoever. Or to show there. So you pressure them in the dueling circle. You get damage on them. Their mana efficiency is going to go to absolute shit no matter how you look at it. The Moonfire spam doesn't help them. The heals are super mana intensive. It's just a really, really, really bad time. You're going to win a mana war. And of course, the gear that you use to win that mana war is not the stuff that I'm using here. It's this stuff here, where you have the super, super thick boy health bar. You have the 25% increased healing efficiency from Hand of Reckoning. You have the massive increase in your plus healing, 86 plus healing, like Jesus. You probably only have 70 DPS in this build right now when you physically get on top of them, but it's just nightmare fuel. And you have Avenger's Shield, which if it lands on them, they have to spend crazy amounts of mana to get it off them. If I had Avenger's Shield him, that mage would have been in a much better position to survive, but and he would have been even lower mana if he didn't shift out of it. Okay, so I'm the end of video here, and Deus Vult. Hopefully that covers most of the classes. We talked about how you're going to beat druids in duels, hunters in duels. Mages, you literally just take this build against a mage. They can't possibly explode you. You're too durable. You don't even wear resistance gear. You're just going to grind them into pulp over time because You can actually avenge your shield and get on top of them and stick them with some damage, especially in a dual circle. They just can't kill you is the problem. They can't kill you from a mana perspective. They can't kill you from an HP perspective. They just don't do enough damage. You're just going to grind them down over time. It's absolutely disgusting. Like I said, this is the anti-caster build right here. Shadow Priest, where I talked about how they're dead. We talked about how Rogue's dead. Didn't talk about Shamans. Shamans is a really interesting. This is a super, super viable build to take against Shamans. You take this build right here against Shamans, you'll do absolutely fantastic. The other build, however, also eats Shamans alive. So against Shamans, you enter this like 6-second cycle with them, where they have two Earth Shocks, basically, right? They have Lava Burst, Earth Shock, and Frost Shock they can hit you with, but they basically have to be within melee range to do all that. So you end up in this weird scenario where the two of you are in melee range with each other, and every 6 seconds they're Lava Bursting you and they're Frost Shocking and Earth Shocking you every 6 seconds. And there's not enough time there for them to really do anything else. Maybe they can put down a totem. Maybe they can go for a flash heal, but there's not much that they can really do. They're just locked into the 6-second cycle with you. You're in the same 6-second cycle where you try to go for 2 Holy Lights every 6 seconds. One of them will get through, one of them will be interrupted. The one that gets through more than makes up for whatever damage you're taking from the Lava Burst. Lava Burst will hit you for about 400 critical. But as we saw, the Holy Lights are healing for about 1450. You actually use Crusader Strike in this, believe it or not. So your Holy Light might only heal for like 400. That's if you were in the other gear. This gear, your Holy Light would probably still heal for about 450, believe it or not. So what that means is your Holy Light every 6 seconds is completely canceling out their Lava Burst damage every 6 seconds, which means it's just down to their 2 shock spells versus whatever damage you're putting back into them. And you'd be alarmed at how much damage you're putting back into them. You wouldn't use a one-hander sword and board style. You'd use a two-hander. Basically, their reward for Earthshock interrupting your Holy Light is that they get Crusader, they get a melee attack back at them, they get a Crusader Strike put into them, they get a Judgment put into them, or they get a Divine Storm put into them, right? So it's not like you're not throwing back damage into them while they're also damaging you, if that makes any sense. You have Divine Storm that's doing its thing on cooldown. You have Crusader Strike that's doing its thing on cooldown. You're getting in 1 to 2 auto attacks on them every 6 seconds. And you're completely nullifying their Lava Burst with your healing. Eventually, what's going to happen? You could even do a bubble cancel and completely ignore one of the Lava Bursts. Eventually, what will happen with the Shaman is that the Shaman will have to heal himself. The Shaman will actually lose the DPS race under these conditions, and he'll have to go for a heal. Shaman healing is absolutely terrible at level 25. It is garbage and a half. The reason for this is because you don't get healing focus unless you put 15 damn points into the restoration tree. So they have no pushback immunity whatsoever. So if they're forced to heal and you swap to a one-hander and you were in the spell power gear, holy fuck, are they about to get absolutely thunked to death, because their heals are they're not gonna be able to do any damage. Basically, you're gonna murder them. They're gonna be heal locked and they're just gonna die. Most elemental shamans don't come this deep into the healing tree, so they don't even have healing in combat. What they picked up instead was, I want Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm. They have like a point in Eye of the Storm, maybe. Let's get a point in Eye of the Storm, shall we? That's 16 points, right? Level 25. So they have a 33% chance when they get crit for the next 6 seconds, they're pushback immune. Okay, like whoop-de-doo. Seal of Righteousness with a one-hander, or even all your auto attacks are going to do work. Basically, they're going to suffer all kinds of pushback when they're trying to heal. It's not like you still don't have Hodge stun. It's not like you still don't have Grenade. It's not like you can't weave in Seal of Justice and go for some Seal of Justice stun action with a two-hander. They're not going to be healing anytime soon. And it's a perfect opportunity just basically to murder them, right? So basically, they'll let their life drop to about 30% or 40%. Then they'll start going for a heal, and they don't realize that they're basically dead at that point. Because you can just stop them from healing for a million years and interrupt them and do so much damage to them that they're just going to die. And that's how you kill shamans. But you really need to enter this 6-second cycle with them from a healing perspective. I've tried other builds, like other talent trees for Paladin. Didn't like it. Didn't like Deep Ret. Didn't like Deep Prot, even though Deep Prot was what I thought I was going to be going. This way around because Guardian's Favor. The build that I thought I was going to fall in love with was this, I think. 1, 2, 3. We need 16 points in total. Required level 25. Yeah. 1, 2, and 1. 1, 2, 1. I think this was the build that I thought I was going to fall in love with right here. So the idea was I would use Concentration Aura. With Concentration Aura, my pushback immunity is over 100%. And I have improved Guardian's Favor, right? So my freedom is going to last 16 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. This is what I thought the best PvP build going into Season of Discovery would be. Turns out that you super need bonus healing. Like, your Holy Lights just aren't, like, what's the point of having Spiritual Focus and being able to heal in combat if my average heal is like 390? I just get a heal locked and killed. So that ended up forcing me to come all the way down here and pick up the improved healing to actually make it actually viable to stop and heal myself. And it just ended up expanding from there, basically. So I was like, all right, cool. And then I started discovering the bonus heat, the spell power gear and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm sold. Sign me up for the spell power gear. All right, cool. So I'm going to end the video here, and Deus Vult, boys. But anyways, yeah, those were all the cards that I was sitting on. Those were all the plans I had for actually winning a PvP dueling tournament. Life is going to look a lot different when we hit level 40. Might not have that here. At level 40, certain builds are going to be really good. It might be the case that a pure holy build is amazing. It might be the case that Eye for an Eye is completely legitimate. We can try real fast here. Let's pick up Benediction. Let's get this. Let's put 1 point into Judgment because Spirit Regeneration tick. We'll put 1 point into there. We'll get 5 points into Critical Strike. And we'll put 2 points in here. Then we're just all in on the healing tree. 1, 2, 3, yeah. So this might be a thing, because again, we're desperate to pick up Healing Light for the increased healing. There are some things that are advantageous at level 40. So for example, you do get Blessing of Light at level 40. She's a brand new rank of Blessing of Light. Our Consecration is a fresh rank of Consecration at level 40. So you might pull a point out of there. So this is required level 40, but we do have Eye for an Eye. We have healing capability, and I have talked at length about how powerful Eye for an Eye plus having healing capability will actually be versus enemy spellcasters, because it'll let you just stop and it'll let you heal lock yourself, but the enemy will lose the DPS war because eventually they'll have to heal or die because of Eye for an Eye. That might be the way to go. No Reckoning, unfortunately. It might be the case that just going all the way down to Holy Shock is the way to go if they give us a rune that reduces Holy Shock's cooldown to like 10 seconds or 15 seconds or something like that, like TBC style. It might be a pure Holy Shock build is completely legitimate because, again, they gave us a 1.3 speed weapon already. Like, Jesus Christ, okay, thank you. The build that I am anticipating using, however, is this. Definitely going to want Kings, going to want 4 points in Toughness, going to want 3 points in Concentration, going to want 2 points here, going to want 4 points in Reckoning, and then we're back into the healing tree. I put 5 points into Improved Intellect, and then only 2 points into Spiritual Focus. Why is this? Because in theory, I can sit Improved Concentration Aura 3 out of 3. And it'll be a 50% pushback immunity for improved concentration aura. That'll give me a 78% pushback reduction, which I can live with. I'm used to playing Holy Reckoning and not using Concentration Aura, and that only has a 75% pushback. So getting anywhere near a 75% pushback, I know very, very, very well how to play with that. We have weak healing because we don't have improved healing light, but we do have Reckoning. And 80% Reckoning chance at Reckoning with all these extra abilities and extra crit chance being thrown around is more than enough, right? More than enough to probably get the job done. If I want to, I can strip a point out of here. I don't think I can strip a point out of there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm at maximum. Yeah, so this is as good as it gets, right? Required level 40, required level 41. Yes, this is as good as it gets. So this would be the advised Reckoning build. So this would be what Holy Reckoning would look like at level 40. But in reality, it might be better to go for an eye with the improved healing, or it might be better to go all the way down the healing tree and to try to PvP that way. Deep Ret, of course, is going to be cracked out of its mind because you have Repent. Deep Ret is going to be absolutely amazing. Really depends on what kind of gear they give us from Nomergon. So, for example, if we're like swimming in an ocean of like male caster gear, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It might be dropping. Male caster gear might drop for the Horde, but it won't drop for the Alliance. A weird TLDR for gearing is what am I trying to say here? I'm not going to be super happy if I have to wear leather again at level 40 for a caster paladin. But if I have to, I'll do it, right? However, if they want to give me plate caster gear, or if they want to give me male caster gear, I'll more than happily wear that. But odds are we're getting like plate plus healing gear come Nomergon, or we're getting like plate spell power gear, which will double as the healing gear, which I'm totally down with. That'd probably be the safe way to go. Give us plate plus spell power gear. You could even try to do some TBC stuff. Where the gear says, plus 10 plus healing and damage, and then it also says plus 22 healing, and it just takes the 22 healing for healing, and it takes the spell power for damage. I see no reason why they couldn't do that, but depends on what gear they get. Depends on what the environment looks like. Which one will be better. But I'll make a video more dedicated to that later. This one was already way too long. And video here, and Deus Volt, boys.